Okay, our viewers from where you are watching us from, this morning we are privileged to be sharing with you a report on a study that we have conducted over the past 12 months. It is a study that aims at interrogating the correlation between commercialized politics, corruption, weakened and dysfunctional state institutions, and state and regional survival. So the study is titled Commercialized Politics and Captivity of State Institutions in Uganda. So we are releasing this study at a time when the country will be going to the polls. To be exact, by the end of January, Uganda expects to have presidential, parliamentary, and local government elections. But these elections are being conducted in a context of highly commercialized politics, a context where corruption continues to be endemic, a context where state institutions are so weak that they have in essence been captured. And the captors seem to be using these state institutions to extend their stay in political office. Now, but also, this captivity has been going on for such a long time that to many of Ugandans on the ground, it looks to be normal. It's the norm now. And so I have prepared a press release, which I am going to read. And so today, the 21st of August 2020, Alliance for Finance Monitoring, which is a coalition of 16 indigenous organizations that banded together to make a solid contribution towards Uganda's democratization process by promoting transparency and accountability in political financing, do hereby release a report titled Commercialized Politics and Captivity of State Institutions in Uganda. The report comes at a time when the country is in the middle of an electoral process that will culminate into presidential, parliamentary, and local government elections in January or February 2021. The intention of this report and the intention of acting to release this report now is to remind the policymakers about the urgent need to consider legal and the policy reforms that are needed to mitigate the growing vice of commercialized electoral politics, and also the need to build state institutions with a view of ensuring that social services are delivered sufficiently to the ordinary Ugandan. And by ordinary Ugandans, we particularly refer to those men and women, young and old, who will bear the brunt of scorching sun or rain as they stand in long queues for very long hours waiting to cast their ballot for the 2021 elections. These citizens need to feel the full presence of the state in its entire welfare sense. This study was motivated by the hypothesis that in the process of ensuring survival, in the process of ensuring political survival in a country where corruption is endemic, and electoral politics is commercialized, state institutions have been perpetually weakened, and some nearly dysfunctionalized. Thus, the study further establishes a correlation between commercialized electoral politics, corruption, and the declining effectiveness of state institutions. ACFIM is calling upon government and key stakeholders to deal with the public institutions that seem to have been trapped in an infrastructure of embezzlement, rent-seeking, and nepotism, with a high premium placed on personal enrichment and political survival. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the press release, and at this juncture, we'll be joined by one of the members of ACFIM, Madame Sisa Kagawa. Is she with us?
Yes,
Okay,
I am.
Kagawa will give us remarks, and then she will declare. She should give us instruction on having this report unveiled. So, Madam Sisa Kagawa, please take the floor.
All right. Thank you very much, Henry. I would like to thank ACFIM for the timely release of this report, because the issues that you are raising are actually very pertinent and they're very, very timely at such a time as this. The issues that you're raising or the issues that are coming up in the report are not a myth, but they are reality and they are a fact. Currently, as a country, we have witnessed state capture. Now, as a result of that, we realize that most government institutions have been made dysfunctional, they've been weakened, more or less they've actually failed to achieve their mandate. Now, that has obviously affected the way corruption is fought. Moreover, as a country, we have a robust legal and institutional framework. But you're going to realize that because of state capture, these corruption levels in the country have continuously gone high. If you look at the Corruption Perception Index of Transparency International, if you look at the East African Bribery Index, again by Transparency International, and also if you look at the Global Financial Integrity Reports of 2017, 2018, 2019, they will actually show that as a country, we lose close to 4 trillion shillings in a year due to corruption-related issues, through illicit financial flows, through money laundering, through creation of offshore accounts, tax evasion, through creation of shell accounts, offshore accounts. This has obviously affected service delivery as a country. And obviously, we need to appreciate the fact that people that are engaging in such actions as these are not ordinary Ugandans, but they are a group of few people that have actually captured the state. And again, it isn't surprising that we see levels of corruption going high. So at this juncture, I want to thank ACFIM and also take the opportunity to launch the report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will stand up and hold copies with my colleagues here. After which my colleagues will make commentaries on the same, and then we can open up for interaction with the media. Okay. So the colleague on my right hand comes from the Youth Coalition on Electoral Democracy. I will ask him to make a few comments from the perspective of the young people who we are saying are the bedrock of this country. And then after which, to my left, my senior colleague will also do the same. So introduce yourself and
yes. Thank you very much. My name is Ivan Tim. I represent the Youth Coalition for Electoral Democracy. This report is a very interesting report because it brings in the insights of one of the challenges that has affected Uganda's electoral democracy. Fundamentally, elections are not an event, but because elections should be about making governments work for the people by making sure that policies are in place. We're increasingly seeing commercialized politics as a limitation to place elections as a fundamental place to place citizens' interest vis-a-vis their leaders. In the eyes of young people, when we see elections increasingly becoming commercialized, the complete disconnect between elections and service delivery is one of the issues that increasingly affect young people. The amount of money that goes into an election vis-a-vis what elections ought to be about is a complete disconnect, which in one way or the other affects the democratic resilience in our country, Uganda. The patronage of youth spaces using money in elections is fundamentally a wrong aspect that we shouldn't be even thinking about as a country if we are going to nurture a citizenry of young people that are willing to drive it forward. Young people are increasingly being patronized using money within their local spaces, but also within the national framework. We all know how young people have become an item in election, a special promise all the time, even when their demands that have been put on the table are not always met. So within the aspect of the young people, again, the exclusion using money is one of the greatest fundamental challenges that we increasingly see. Young people cannot comfortably stand for political office because the high cost of nomination fees limits them. This has been deliberate, and we think that a country that should put their young people first need to address the socio-economic political challenges that may limit them to be able to meaningfully participate. So if I close my closing remarks that if a democracy is to be sustained, then the role of young people in defining democratic resilience cannot be undermined. And more so, dealing with the issue of commercialized politics in the aspects of young people will be a contributory factor in addressing some of these challenges. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to salute all Ugandans, salute ACFIM for the good work well done. I am Wider Moses Wambuzi, a member of ACFIM, and I have a few comments to make, which I believe even the local person in my village, Chidera, where I come from, may understand. One, we are in multi-party politics. Multi-party politics, which, when I look at it, we have the ruling party and the parties in opposition. And when you are going for elections, when they are going for elections, within the party systems, you see money at play. You only need to look at who is spending more. Whoever has it more spends more, regardless of where he's coming from. So the biggest problem that we are facing is that it is within our blood, it seems, that we must get positions after spending money. That is point number one that I wanted to look at, which has also trickled down to our children. Go to primary schools, secondary schools, higher institutions of learning. You wonder where those younger men and children get money, but it's from their parents, from their well-wishers. Of course, when you begin nurturing future leaders, you begin from those levels. But if you begin nurturing them using money, then he will grow up knowing that for you to get leadership, you must spend, you must pay somebody to give you a position or a position of leadership. So I think we are nurturing something too bad, which is a time bomb to the nation. Then the issue number 2 that I wanted to talk about, my brother there was saying younger people have been detached from politics. But I want also to tell the country that younger people, some young people in politics, they are those who are sponsored by their parents, by their well-wishers, who have the money, and they are also falling suit of the same system, same process, which also endangers our country. I said we are on a time bomb. Tomorrow, the other day, if anybody credible comes up to seek for a vote, however good you may be, if you have no money, even the youth we are talking about, the old like us, are saying, what do you have to offer for my vote? Meaning, we are selling the votes, we are buying the votes, which is a wrong mentality. Not only morally, but it is putting both the giver and taker on a time bomb. If we were to begin early, looking at the population of the youth, if you go to the percentages, youth form almost 78% of the population of Uganda. The youth who are able to vote. And I thought these youth could be used profitably to make possible changes which should be looked at as, which we could look at as a redeemer. But the youth themselves, as he said, they are jobless, they are what? The youth are now prey. They have been made prey to the system that they must get money. You find a few youth who can go in wholeheartedly after you've trained them that they are coming to vote for free. They are transported, fed, and given allowances before they can go into politics to participate by voting or supporting. So I am looking at a situation where we are sitting on a time bomb as a nation, as Uganda, as Africa, because it is not only in Uganda, it is common in many African countries. So what are we saying? What are we telling the population of Uganda? What are we telling the leaders? That we need to change. One, need to build state institutions that have independence and can function. But it's a longer journey. The journey that we are beginning or we started on is too long that we needed to start earlier than today or earlier than yesterday. But to change people's minds, that mindset which has been tuned in our heads, it is something, a high hill to climb. So, if we talk of subsidy delivery, somebody will only realize that there is no subsidy delivery or there is poor subsidy delivery when he is suffering a problem. But when he's getting money as a result of participating in politics, he will never realize there is a problem. So, I am calling upon all you like-minded Ugandans to begin thinking about the time bomb we are setting for ourselves. Whether you are a leader at any level, whether you are a recipient of the monies involved in politics, whether you are passive, you don't do anything, to begin realizing that once this bomb explodes, everybody will be affected. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
First and foremost, my name is Fred Musisi. I'm a board member of ACFI. The issue we are addressing, commercialization of politics and the captivity of state institutions, is a very, very serious issue in our democratization process, because this actually is the biggest indicator of how our democracy has holes in it. It's a very big democracy deficit, because our constitution talks about power belonging to the people. The question is, what is this power, and how is this power exercised? Precisely, this power that belongs to the people, primarily people exercise it during independent minds to choose these leaders who they feel are going to lead them in the next, say, 5 years. But the moment these decisions get influenced by money, get influenced by these politicians investing money and actually go away from articulating issues, talking about what they intend to do. Some positions don't even want to talk about what their constitutional mandate is. Candidates like parliamentary candidates will never talk about their constitutional mandate during campaigns, but they will talk about how many ambulances they have bought, how many people they have buried, how many weddings they have sponsored. This is not the mandate of a member of parliament. But because they know that for them to grab this power from the people, you just have to buy it. So they use money, and unfortunately, our population either is not aware or is too weak, too poor to realize that they are actually giving away the only power they have over these leaders. You cannot hold a leader who bought you accountable at any moment. It is impossible. The moment you accept money from a candidate, you are done. That is a business transaction. No matter what he does, no matter how he behaves, you are useless to him until the next election, and you are a commodity to be bought, and you will come back with money, and you will clap for them, and they will buy you. So this culture, whoever started it, is the biggest enemy to this country. And whoever continues to participate, you are also doing very, very serious damage to this country. During the last elections, I've been hearing some candidates saying that, Ugandans, when they bring the money, eat the money and vote wisely. I think that is dangerous. That is terrible. The moment someone eats the money, it doesn't, corruption, I equate corruption to vampires. When a vampire bites you, it sucks your blood, but you also become a vampire. Okay? So, if this corrupt leader gives you money and you accept it, you are not only giving away your powers and your rights, but you are also becoming corrupt. That means the following day, if you also get an opportunity to become a candidate, you are going to do the same. So the cycle continues, and the country finds itself in this situation.
Okay, thank you. We're good to go. Yeah, questions, yeah.
Yes, sorry, I haven't read the report yet. I just have a question. Still related to what mainly challenged. You have previously written about how much money we are spending in elections. Is there any difference we are going to make this time because we are holding that elections? Are we going to see situations where voters are not given a lot of money because perhaps they are not going to have ballots, something like that? And then of the institutions you're saying are captured, state control as a result of finances and which institutions do you think are the most captured in the country? Is it in the Parliament of Uganda? Is it the local government? Which ones do you think will be next?
Thank you very much. So we have been told by the Electoral Commission that the election is no longer going to be scientific, but it is something they are calling hybrid. Hybrid meaning they are going to allow a degree of meeting. But also we have seen the manner in which the incumbents from the ruling party have been flouting the standard operating procedure. We have our doubts that whereas on paper we are saying hybrid, when campaigns open up and we get into full-blown campaign mode, we are likely to see an escalation in the level of flouting of SOPs. Now, because of that, the hybrid nature, of course, comes with its own costs, because if you're going to go down the path of media, like we have seen it during the campaigns for those that have been contesting for NRM senior positions, you get to see that placing an ad in the middle of a very popular talk show, for instance, on NTV, you're going to pay more, about upwards of 1 million. And so that, of course, on paper already escalates the cost. But also, because of the hybrid nature, where some candidates and political parties are saying our strategy is going to be kakuyege, door to door, there is no way you're going to go door to door and not spend more. But also, you are likely to see other modes of creativity, such as outdoor advertising that is digital. You are likely to see temporary, semi-permanent outdoor advertising things put up at sub-county parish level. So we expect actually this election to be much more expensive than it were. Now back to the next question. In the report we have commissioned today, we have taken a case study approach. We have looked at 4 institutions. We have looked at the institution of Parliament. We have looked at the institution of local governments. We have looked at macroeconomic institutions, those 3. But let me say this, that in the report we observe that all state institutions in this country are under captivity. One of the questions we were asking the respondents was to mention one institution in this country that they feel is working. All the respondents we asked failed to mention one. So the perception out there is that institutions are dysfunctional, and truth be told, because the citizen in this world, the Mutua wants in this country, wants to see government's presence in the form of social services being delivered to him. But social service delivery in this country is largely insufficient. And therefore, there is not one institution now. The difference could also be in degree. When you look at the institution of Parliament, which you are focused on, which is supposed to be an organ of people's sovereignty, Parliament of Uganda is one of the most captured institutions. When you go down to the local governments where social services are supposed to, where the rubber touches the ground, those are supposed to be the vehicles for social service delivery to the Muntua 1C. These institutions are captured to the core. You go to the village and you find someone has captured a village, someone has captured a parish, someone has captured a sub-county, someone has captured a district, or a group of them, and they have seized all the operations, and they're using this for self-enrichment, and they are using this to do things that are contrary to what the people want. You go down to the macroeconomic institutions that we highlight in this report. Ministry of Finance, Bank of Uganda, the Treasury. And in the context of commercialized politics, you would imagine that these are the institutions that are supposed to make sure that they create and implement macroeconomic policies that would insulate the economy of Uganda from suffering the shocks that we always see us suffering from when elections are conducted. We note in the report that from the early 2000s, the executive started loosening. The forces of pleasing voters took over. These institutions started weakening to today. You saw what happened in 2011. Almost all hell broke loose. In 2016, we would have had a similar problem had the very creator not intercepted. It was by the grace of the very creator that we were able to have rain, so there was no food shortage. It was by grace of the very creator that the world prices for fuel, for crude oil, were kept low. Okay, so these institutions have been so weakened, and the question we're asking in the report is why? Whose interest does the weakened state institutions serve? Why is it that nobody is interested in making sure that these institutions are strengthened? And we argue that one of the reasons why this is so is because the weakened state institutions are serving the interest of keeping the politics, the regime in place. So interests of political survival, interests of economic survival. Okay, but also we say that one of the things that are being used to weaken these institutions is corruption. So corruption has provided a fertile ground for people of different interests to penetrate and weaken these institutions. So, anybody wants to make a comment?
Yeah, there was just to add on. He asked whether many more money would be spent. When you look at some of the suggested ways to campaign at town hall meetings, the EC is adjusting for that. Say 100 people, you can meet them and talk to them as a candidate. If people in a row of thousands demand for money from a candidate, just imagine what will happen in a town hall meeting, 100 people meeting their candidate. What will happen? Definitely this candidate must pay them, because they are not only his voters for that matter, but he also looks at them as campaign agents. They are representatives. So he has to amuse them. So more money will be spent, definitely.
Come in.
In the report, you explained to us, you talked about the findings. Can you share some of the recommendations you have taken into consideration the period that we have? Probably now, but also in the future, what do we need to do to be able to deal with this problem going forward?
You're right. So we have highlighted about 5 recommendations which we think are critical and that the country should be focused on. Recommendation number 1. We have urged the government in power, the policymakers, but also other stakeholders to focus on rebuilding the institutions that have been so weakened that they are no longer able to serve the purpose for which they were created. So rebuilding of institutions, the future of Uganda, the future of other African countries is going to depend on strong institutions. Number 2, we are calling upon the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs to consider seriously enacting a stand-alone comprehensive legislation that would regulate election campaign financing. We have missed an opportunity when electoral reform bills were presented in Parliament with the provisions to regulate campaign spending, campaign financing. We have lost that opportunity because those provisions were kicked out. This is the time to come back and get good. Number 3, the Electoral Commission should set up an independent department that manages political parties and political finance. We understand and take cognizance of the fact that quite often the Electoral Commission narrowly interprets its mandate to mean organizing and conducting elections. But the role of regulating political parties needs a strong department that would require that these political parties are able to adhere to the provisions in the Political Parties and Organizations Act, and that those that fail to do so get to be sanctioned. At the moment, these provisions are not followed, they are not enforced. Number 3, we are calling, number 4, political party leaders, also parliament. We are calling upon them to consider a form of democracy that is called representative democracy, that would remove individuals from the faces of electorate and replace individuals with political parties. The time has come for the country in Uganda to consider working towards the real multi-party political dispensation, so that when we go to campaign, we campaign as a party, not as individuals. At the moment, because we campaign as individuals, the cost of campaigning has gone so high. And because the cost of campaigning has gone so high, individuals that do not have access to campaign money have been technically knocked out of the competition. This has to change. If we have a representative democracy where a political party that gets a certain percentage of the electoral result gets to be entitled to a certain percentage of the delegates in parliament, in district councils, this would work. And number 5, civil society must come back and engage in rigorous civic education, because, like my colleague was saying, the Ugandan citizenry, the culture of thinking that at every encounter with a political leader you must get money, the culture of thinking that elections provide them with a window of opportunity to make money has to change. This culture has subverted our democracy. Uganda is experiencing democratic reversals because we are confronted with a situation where the electorate is so money-minded. These have to change. If we are going to allow the young people to come up, step forward, and contest in a level playing field, then we have to work on the electorate. And one way of doing this is to carry out rigorous civic education. These are the 5 recommendations we make in the report. Thank you.
So we have you do some Uganda value for that.
Yes.
Yeah, Jim.
My name is Jingo Francis. I work with NTV. This is not the first time that we come up with